despite the traffic, but otherwise doing good. And I hope all your listeners, both in St. Lucia and globally, are in a good mood and good spirit. And I think we're going to have a very interesting day today.
I think we certainly will.
Yeah.
Now, you know, specifically you're here today to respond to some statements made by the Tourism Minister, Mr. Dominic Fede. Of course, he made those statements here on this particular show. So I invited you to be here today to respond, you know, to these statements. But before we do that, I just want to ask you, how is your case, your court case coming on?
Well, officially, in a sense, we were in court yesterday. A lot of legal arguments and, you know, a lot of pre-trial applications to be dealt with. Continuing next week. And I think it's going to be interesting. I'm really looking forward to the resolution of this matter.
Okay.
Because in many ways, it has been, you know, some very difficult, you know, matters to deal with.
I was curious, are there any reporters attending these hearings?
Well, I think yesterday was what I think they consider in chambers or something like that. It's not open court. So I'm not sure for open court, you know, what's going to happen. And I suspect reporters probably are allowed. I'm not an officer of the court by any chance. I'm not one who frequents the court, so I wouldn't really know. But I'm sure whatever happens will make it way into the public.
That's what I was
And
really
all the
concerned
documents will be made public. And I cannot wait for the documents to be made public.
Okay. All right, Dr. Hilaire, let's get now to the meat of the matter, the issue of the range development and the claims and counterclaims and explanations. We have figures being bandied about, this one saying this one, and you saying something else, and so on. And they all sound credible.
Yeah.
So can you please shed some more light and, you know, tell us, well, from your perspective, how you view this whole issue?
Well, first of all, Andrea, I want to say I read the transcript of your interview with Dominic Fede, and you certainly tried to get a lot out of him. And it is interesting that he kept saying whenever you seem to pin him down that he cannot say much because there is a confidentiality agreement and there'll be a joint statement. And you ask him, when will the joint statement come out? He said it will come out soon, 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 soon. So he cannot give specifics and explain because of confidentiality and promising a joint statement. Yet he insists on calling me a liar. Now, I mean, you call somebody a liar. In politics, when they call you a liar, you have to be thick skin. You don't really bother too much with some of those things. But the minister, Honorable Fede, said a few things. First of all, he said, I'm a liar, and I lied because I lied about the sale of the land. So I will deal with that. He says that I was lying because of figures which I gave. I will deal with that again. He also said, and I want to quote him, that the opposition have no standards. Opposition have no standards. And it is really sad because it is important for a country to have a serious opposition, and it's important for a country to have an opposition that takes the development of a nation seriously and to take the time and research a number of issues and to do so responsibly and to have a very mature debate on the range, no pun intended, of issues. This is Honorable Fede saying you have to have a serious opposition. The opposition must take its time to do research, and we must have a mature debate on the range of issues. I know I do research. I know my colleagues do research. But he wants a mature debate. But how does he do it? He calls me a liar and challenges me to take him to court. And he's begging me, take me to court, let's battle it out in court. If you call on your opposition to be mature, to do their research, and let's have a mature debate, the way you want to debate is for me to sue you to go to court, for us to battle out in court. We don't have to battle out in court. We can battle it out over the talk shows, public meetings, press conferences. So I am not going to take Dominic Fede to court. I'm not. And he can beg from now till tomorrow. I'm not going to take Dominic Fede to court. I was in court yesterday with Alan Chasney.
By the way, do you think that was just, as I say, political theater? That he didn't really mean...
It is theater. And let the theater continue. And let's see who are the best directors.
And you said something else a while ago in terms of, you know, calling people a liar and so on. And you said that in politics, you don't really take that too seriously. But should you not be taking the, when I say you, I mean making a general statement, that when these statements are made, that you do take them seriously?
Well, I probably should have put it differently. You take it seriously, not to the point where you want to sue somebody for calling you a liar. I mean, if somebody calls you a liar, you try to prove, no, I'm right in what I'm saying, and you engage in a debate with the person. I think, in my view, I mean, when things become a lot more defamatory and libelous, then one considers going to court. But, I mean, if I say if Dominic says I'm a liar, I mean, I know that I'm going to bother. I'll try to prove my case. That's what debate is about. But I will not take Dominic Fede to court. I know that. I was in court yesterday with Alan Chasney, but Dominic Fede is not in that league. He's not in that league. Dominic Fede is not even a full minister. And he needs to reflect on that.
Can you explain that? What do you mean he's not a full minister?
Well, he's minister in the office of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is the Minister of Tourism. He is a minister in the office of the Prime Minister. Mary Isaac lost the election. She was made a full minister. Herman Gill Francis did not contest elections. He's a full minister. Fortuna Belrose lost. She was made a full minister. He's not a full minister. So
I actually asked him that question on a previous program, and he did confirm that he is a full minister.
He is?
That is what he said.
Maybe only in his imagination. Maybe. But I'm not going to take him to court. Like I said, I'm not sure he's exactly in the league where I will want to take him to
Another thing, Dr. Hilaire, sometimes you don't really need to say or to call somebody a liar for you to really do it in a sort of way that they know, or you're trying to say to them that they're telling lies. For example, when, for example, he brings information, right, to the contrary, or you do the same thing, right?
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. It is through debate and argument. Now, I mean, lucky for me, I grew up in an NYC where we used to have debates, and Castries versus Labrie. I mean, persons like Honorable Alva Baptiste, and we were outstanding Henry Mangal, you know, outstanding debaters. So we grew up in a culture in an NYC, learning how to research, how to put forward debates and argue our points. So certainly we enjoy a good debate.
And by the way, the NYC, do they still operate, you know, have that modus operandi?
I think they're trying very hard, and they've really been putting a lot of effort in getting NYC going. But the social and political and economic conditions are so different to the 80s. It is so much more difficult to do youth work now. In our days, we would take a bus, go to Soufre to have a youth meeting. We're not sure how we're coming back up. If we don't get somewhere to stay, we hike a ride back up. If not, we just sleep by our partner on his couch or on his mother, you know, sofa. These days, you can't exactly just hike a ride to Soufre and then at 11 o'clock in the night, hike a ride back up.
Yes.
I mean, we used to do that in the 80s. We used to go all over St. Lucia. Mario Michel alone had a car, and otherwise, we just hike rides. So it's really more difficult for them now, and they face a lot more social issues than we face.
Now, as an MP, are you still, I think the last time you were here, you said that you still have the NYC, you know, in your heart, because this is what gave you most of the skills and so on that you now have. So are you still heavily involved with the NYC?
No, I'm in touch. I mean, I think last year I probably attended 2 or 3 of their activities. They've invited me to sit on a regional panel, a panel they had at a regional youth conference. I've attended activities they've invited me to. I'm in touch with the leadership, you know, even the South Castries Youth and Sports Council, the president. You know, we do have exchanges. I share my views. I encourage them always to be strong advocates and to speak on behalf of the young people, no matter who gets vexed. It doesn't matter if I get vexed, it doesn't matter if Labour Party get vexed, UWP get vexed. Stand up for the young people and speak on their behalf. Of course, the environment now is very intimidating, and I can understand how they would feel. In our days, we didn't really care too much. You know, we just went all out there and did our stuff.
So when you say the environment is very intimidating, do you mean what? The fact that we have social media and so on? Or?
Well, not so much that. It's the attitude of the government. I mean, we look at the attack on media professionals. Look at how they treat the National Trust, how they treat the Medical and Dental Association, calling people jackasses. I mean, I don't know that NYC, as it is presently constituted, is looking for a war with the government. And maybe that is making them a little reluctant to openly say the things they want to say. I'm not speaking on their behalf. This is an outside judgment. But it's an intimidating environment now for social organizations that want to speak up against anything that the government is doing. It's not a encouraging, it's not the creation of a pluralistic society that's taking place in St. Lucia right now. It's really about shutting up any dissent or opposition. Look at what happened at the press conference where reporters were told to shut up. You know, I mean, it just tells you the kind of mindset that exists in the country now. And that can be a little bit intimidating.
Okay.
Yeah. So back to Dominic Fede. So I believe Dominic Fade's whole calling me liar and all his theatrics is a little juvenile, a little childish. So I think I just need to go over the issues again, and I want to go over it systematically, Andre.
Yes,
and I don't want no theatrics.
Right, and also explain in such a way that the ordinary man can understand.
Okay, so the first thing he said is that I lied about the sale of the land. And he said I produced a land registry document to show that the land was sold a year plus after the elections of June 16th. So he's admitting that I showed the land registry paper to show when the land was sold. And they remind me of Trump. You know, if you follow a lot of the discourse in the U.S. So, for example, Trump stands up and he tells a reporter about they don't think. And everybody heard that and shocked. But when but his office released the transcript and he said, y'all do not funk, y'all not funking. You know, something like that. So not thinking, funking. And they have a way of what they call presenting alternative facts. And they've virtually been schooled in that. So he's saying, I produced the land registry papers that showed the sale of the land on a particular date. But he's saying that's not the sale. The sale really took place by your Labour Party when you all signed an agreement agreeing to sell. But sit down and reflect on that. A guy is saying to you, you see the land paper, the documents you have that show the date you sell the land to me? That's not the sale. The sale is when 3 years ago you had told me, I will sell that land to you. Now, really? So if you tell somebody, Andre, I'm going to sell my car to you, I plan to sell it, I am thinking of selling it, but if you can raise the money, if I buy another vehicle, I will sell it to you. As of the day you told the guy that, you've already sold it to him?
No.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and listen to what he says, and I want to quote him, because I do not want to just say something. He says to you, why he is saying that's not the sale. If your father signed an agreement to sell your family's property, and then subsequently dies, it is then your responsibility. He has agreed to sell the land, and you are trying to get out of it now that he has died. It is too late for you to get out of it. And that's the situation we found ourselves in. In other words, he's telling you, once you sign something to say you're going to sell it, it's already sold. That's not true. But you know what?
So what then would be true?
Well, and that's quite important. Now, let's go for it again. Stage 2. Andre, I said at the press conference, and I will repeat it, we agreed to sell the land. We agreed to sell the land. Of course, the agreement says what has to be done first before you can actually buy it, but we agreed to sell it. You don't sell something the day you tell somebody, I will sell it to you at some future date when you've done X, Y, and Z. You have agreed to sell it. I'm not denying that. I'm not denying we agreed to sell it. But where he's becoming a little disingenuous is that the UWP, when they came to power, they renegotiated the agreement. So stop there. They renegotiated it. They had a new signing ceremony at Royalton. At that signing ceremony, they announced changes to the agreement, one of which was a different approach to financing the hotel. So if you had a problem with the sale of the land or the agreement to sell the land, the same way you renegotiated the agreement, you had a new signing ceremony, you announced you changed the financing agreement. Why didn't you change something to do with the sale of the land? Now, I think the land should be sold, because if you're going to build a hotel, a developer will not, I mean, he would want to buy the land he's building the hotel on. It's either you tell him pay for the land up front, or you say to him, when you finish building the hotel, you now need to pay for the land, or you provide him with a lease. But the point is, if the government had a difficulty with the project, they could have stopped it. The same way they stopped the Soufrière Square, which was already in track. At least the range had not even started yet. They stopped the Soufrière Square. They stopped the Fort Administrative Center. That will cost the taxpayers of St. Lucia millions of dollars. Work had already started. Work had not started yet for range, but you did not stop it. If you were so against it, why didn't you stop it? You stopped the 4-lane highway from Castries to Grosley. You stopped it. Agreements had been signed with Q80 Fund. You stopped it. There was a proposal that Dr. Anthony had agreed to use the UK grant of about £30 million to start a Northwest Highway. That was also changed. So why can you change so many things, including projects that had already started, but you didn't stop that one? I don't think they should have stopped it, because I believe the South needs hotels. We had announced about 2 or 3 hotels for the South, so I would never tell them to stop it. But the point is, don't make a big deal about, oh, the land is not sold when you actually pay for it. The land is sold from the day I say to you, I will sell it to you. Now, come on. Come on. And you're calling me a liar because of that? But all of that is not so important, Andre. It's not so important. Who sold the land is not so important. When it was sold is not so important. What is important, Andre, is why is it that a developer came to St. Lucia to build a hotel for us, and we end up having to pay him millions of dollars? That is what is important. That is what is important. Not whether Labour sold the land, Europe sold the land, it was sold in September 2017, or it was sold in April 2016. That's not important. Just think about it, and I want all St. Lucians to think about that. An investor comes into your country to build a hotel that would create jobs during construction, that will create jobs when the hotel is operating, a Ritz-Carlton hotel. The whole project is so badly managed by the government that the investor is leaving, and he now gets millions of dollars payment. That is what is important. That's what's important. And then you know what he says? The second reason why I'm a liar is because I'm giving different figures. But you keep asking him what's the figure, and he keeps saying, I cannot tell you. There's confidentiality agreement. There will be a joint statement. But he accepts there's a settlement. Huh? There's no denying that there's a settlement. Mm-hmm. It's just that he cannot tell you the details. But at the press conference, he was giving details. And we'll go into the details. Now,
just a second, Dr. Hilaire, you spoke about that whole project being badly managed. Can you explain what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, just from a simple perspective, if you come into St. Lucia to invest, you say, look, I have some millions of dollars, I've built a hotel in St. Kitts, I've built one in Dominica, I want to build one in St. Lucia, and you start making arrangements. At the end of the day, you and the government end up in confusion, and the government has to pay you millions of dollars. That's badly managed, huh? Without even knowing the macro issues. That's evidence of it being badly managed.
So the opposition has no information as to exactly what those macro issues were?
Well, for fear that Dominic Fede might call me a super liar this time. So from what I heard out in the industry out there, the gentleman brought in monies, according to the financing agreement, he brought in monies, and Dominic Fede said it was 54 million. He said so in his press conference. And the gentleman could not get access to the money. So if he can't get access to the money, the government is not doing what it has to be done to make sure he can actually start the project. He decides he's finished with this. Mm-hmm. So the big question also is, where did the money go to? But we'll come to that one in a while. Mm-hmm. So he's saying I'm using different figures. So, and to follow up on the question you just asked, the issue is that when I first heard about what was going on, I was told that the gentleman had brought in the passports as agreed, and which is illegal what the Prime Minister was doing. When they signed the agreement at Royalton, the Labour Party had a press conference, and we said to the Prime Minister, what you're doing is wrong, Prime Minister. We said it in the House on the debate on the negative resolution.
But you used a strong word. You said it's illegal.
Right. So I'll tell you why it's illegal. According to the CIP Act, monies that come in through donation has to go into the National Economic Fund. Section 33 says that. It says the Prime Minister must come to Parliament to say how much money will be earned and how it will be spent and get parliamentary approval. It also says he has to report in the previous year to say exactly how the money was spent. So you will come to Parliament and say, I expect to get $35 million for the year. I will spend it on schools, on hospitals, and this is the breakdown. Parliament, can you approve it? Approve. The following year, He comes and say, last year we actually collected 40 million and not 45, and this is how we spend the 40 million. This year I expect to get 50 million, and this is how I will spend it. Parliament, I ask for your approval. Approval is given. That's what the law says has to happen. When the Prime Minister announced that he had signed a deal with Range, where Range will bring in monies through donation, but instead of going to the National Economic Fund, he says he's going to give it to him as a loan at about 2%, or whatever percentage he said. Now, that's not what the Act says. The Act says he has to come to Parliament for approval. So if he wanted to give Range the National Economic Fund monies, he had to come to Parliament every year and get approval for doing that.
Dr. Hilaire, I need to ask you that question because I've heard this so often, especially from the opposition. I think I even had the leader of the opposition here, and I keep asking, how could the Prime Minister be doing those things which your party says are illegal, and he just seems to be doing those things, and the opposition seems to be unable to challenge him, even in court, as a matter of fact. To me, don't you think that's a matter that should be taken to court if you're saying that it is illegal?
If he had actually given Range the loan, we would have taken it to court. I don't know if you heard that yesterday, Dr. Anthony filed a case in the court against the DSH project.
So, he has?
Yeah, so we'll see how that one plays out. So you do not necessarily want to go to court to deal with those things. You want to say to the Prime Minister, what you're doing is not consistent with the law. Can you come to Parliament and deal with it correctly? The leader of the opposition has pointed out, the Diga Road, you need to come to Parliament for approval for those loans. But the Prime Minister insists on doing it. And I think going to court must always be a last resort. You want to use moral suasion and political pressure to get the government to respect good governance. If they finally show you that they have no regard for you, then you probably should go to court and start stopping some projects. You understand? That's my personal feeling on it. So, coming back to the Range, so I was saying to you why it's illegal, because there's a particular way, in which the Act says what has to be done. The Prime Minister said he would give it to them as a loan. You need to come to Parliament to get the loan. So apparently the gentleman is ready for his money. He knows he's brought in tens of millions of dollars to start his project, but he can't get access to his money, to the money. So he says, well, look, if you cannot do what is right and make the monies available, I'm going to call off the project. Now I'm telling you what I heard. And he's going to call off the project. And the government, by a certain date, did not do what has to be done. So the gentleman says, well, look, if you can't give me the money, I will then have to sue the government.
And you asked the question earlier as to what happened to those monies.
To those monies, and we still have not been told. And Dominic Fede, rather than calling me a liar, and he wants a mature debate, he probably should say what has happened to those monies. Then eventually the gentleman said, look, if you can't settle and pay me my money by a certain date, I'm going to sue you all for aggravated damages, for loss of profit. And from what I was told, that would be totaling almost 100 million. At our press conference, we said to the government, please settle this matter. Why settle it? Because of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister stood up in the House. If a gentleman is saying to you, you've not honored your part of the agreement, and I'm going to sue you if you don't sort it out. The Prime Minister stood up in the House and he said, the Range project is delayed because of our fault. I am responsible, blah, 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 and we will sort it out by July 1st. So he's accepted fault already.
I think he also said that there's a new developer who's interested in...
No, I'm coming to that the second time.
Okay.
So the first time he said he accepted fault, he said it in the House. Now if somebody's going to sue you, you're accepting fault already. You really have no basis to come out of that now. He's then asked a second time in a press conference. And to make it worse, he says, like, almost don't worry about that. I already have another developer I'm talking to replace a guy. What more show of bad faith you want than that? Somebody trying to negotiate with you for not fulfilling part of your agreement, and you're announcing I already have somebody to replace him, so that's not a problem. You can't do that. Now, there is no way you can win that case again. So we are saying to the Prime Minister, settle this matter.
But don't you think this is what the developer wants? That he just wants his money in, and that is it, that he's moving on. Maybe that's why the Prime Minister made those statements.
But what that means, Andre, you cannot win the case anymore. You've weakened yourself. For example, Andre, if you and I have an agreement, and you're supposed to do works for me at my house as a contractor, and you're not doing it, and I say I'm going to sue you because you're not honoring the contract, and you say, that's true. All the things that didn't happen is my fault, eh? How can you ever come back now and negotiate? You've weakened yourself. You accepted fault. And then to worse, if you say, I ain't working on my house because I'm working on another house that have a bigger value than that. How you can ever expect to win that guy in court when you admitted you had fault? And second, you admitted you go in somewhere else and do the work. And therefore, his job is not important. You can never win him in court. So the gentleman was on a very strong footing, and we were saying to the government, do not let them sue the government for so much money. Settle this matter as soon as possible.
And when you say so much, by the way, you said what could be, what figure we're looking at?
From what I heard flying out there, over $100 million.
US?
Yes, based on loss of profit, aggravated damages, blah, blah, blah. It did not reach that stage. The government settled the matter, and then we come to Dominic Fede.
By the way, can you tell us exactly how the government settled the matter? Do you know?
Well, I think they agreed to pay him a certain amount of money. Now, I'm repeating what Dominic Fede said. I am not the one who said it. I am repeating what Dominic Fede said. He said in a press conference, and I can provide you with the transcript, and I'm sure your guys there have a recording of it. He said that the guy brought in $54 million. Dominic Fede said that. The guy brought in $54 million. He also said the guy will be paid for the lands that he had paid for. He also said the guy will be paid a commission on the passport sales of $5.4 million. Now listen to this, Andrew, and this is so wrong. When authorized agents process and facilitates passport citizenship by investment and promoters out there, the government pays them 10% commission. So they bring in a sale, which is about $100,000. They get 10,000 US commission.
Now, excuse my ignorance, huh? Why would a developer have to be selling our passports and things like that?
Andre, he has to get investors in the project. So he's out there getting investors. But he's not an agent. He's not a promoter. He doesn't deserve a commission. He is not obligated to pay him a commission. He's a developer. And that question you ask, Dominic Fede must answer that question. Why is the developer getting a commission? Why is a developer getting a commission? You could call the CIP. I ask you to call the CIP. I ask you to ask any of your reporters to call the CIP. And ask the CIP one simple question, two questions. Who qualifies to receive commissions? And a follow-up. Do developers qualify for commission? And here the answers. Ask any of your reporters to do that. Developers do not qualify for commission. So you're paying him the land that he had paid for. You're paying him a commission of $5.4 million US, which he's not entitled to. And the third category, according to Dominic Fede, they're reimbursing his expenses. So you're paying him about whatever he paid for the land, $7 million. You give him $5 million for commissions and expenses. He did not give us some for expenses. And Dominic Fede goes on to say, St. Lucia gets a net of $21 million. Now, if you brought in 54, and I end up with a net of 21, that means I give you back 33. Yeah? Because you brought in 54. I keep 21. That's my net. So that means I give you back 33. So, at the press conference, I said, according to Dominic Fede maths, we have paid range $43 million. I did not make the figure. The figure came from Dominic Fede words. He said we reimbursing him for the land. We reimbursing him for commissions for the sale. We reimbursing him for expenses. And we are left with $21 million. So in all, that means we've given him $43 million. So how am I lying? It is your maths, your words I use. So I don't know how I'm a liar because I'm using figures that are not correct. What Dominic Fede should do is say that he probably misspoke. Like the Prime Minister said he misspoke about the Border Control Agency. Maybe Dominic Fede should just say, you know what, I wasn't too sure of the figures I was quoting and I misspoke. The true figure is maybe 20 million or 15 million. Maybe he should do that. But according to his words, and ask any of your reporters to go back to the press conference and look at the words that he used. Riani was at the press conference when I spoke about that and I explained the figures. Tell him go back to his press conference. But the point, Andre, is not so much the amount, whether it's 30, whether it's 35, whether it's 25, whether it's 20. The point is, why are we paying a developer millions of dollars of our CIP money? That is what Dominic Fede, if he wants a mature debate, come and say to the public, this is what happened in this project. this is where whatever happened, and we now have to pay $20-something million. By calling me liar and saying I'm a jumping jack does not provide the public with answers. It does not. So I would want him to probably just explain, why is it? Where have you ever heard that happening in the world, Andre? An investor comes into a country with his money to spend, to invest, and he ends up leaving and the government paying him tens of millions of dollars. This is an indictment on the government. An indictment. And Dominic Fede, if the figures are wrong, he caused the problem. Because he went and spoke out of turn and gave figures that were so wrong. Now, Andre, time is running out because I still have a lot more to say to Dominic Fede. So can I move on? Mm-hmm. In your interview with Dominic Fede spoke about landings and sandals. You asked him about that. And he said he can't say too much because he's at court. But listen to what he was able to say. He says, and I quote him, "What I'm going to say to you, though, is that the facts are very interesting. In that there was a policy decision taken several years ago, I think maybe 10 years, where Sandals and Landings have agreed to give up part of their lands to expand the boundary or to expand the public access to the beach." That's between Landings and the new Sandals. Landings, as far as I know, has actually made the allowance for that when they were building the fence on the northern side of their property, and they have adjusted it 5 feet inward from their boundary. So he's saying both Landings and Sandals had agreed to give up a portion of their land to have a public access to the beach between Landings and the new Sandals. As far as he knows, Landings did give up their land. He doesn't say Sandals ever give up their land. He doesn't. So we need to ask Dominic Fede, did Sandals ever give up land so we'll have a public access between the two hotels to the beach? We also need to ask Dominic Fede whether or not Sandals did not only not give up their land, but when the controversy started between Sandals and Landings, the government of St. Lucia tried to compulsory acquire Landings' land. Listen to me, eh? And I need him to come and clarify it. Compulsory try to acquire the land to settle the legal matter. So there's a legal matter between Sandals and Landings, because Landings was supposed to give up land, Sandals was supposed to. Sandals did not, and the minister does not say Sandals did, and they started construction and encroach. Right? So it goes to court. There's a dispute, because not only did you not give up your land, but you've been encroaching on mine. What did the government of St. Lucia did? And I need him to clarify if that is true. The government of St. Lucia actually was going to go and acquire the lands compulsorily to be able to give Sandals. And the lawyers for the Landings had to go to court and tell the court to stop it. And the court stopped it. The court virtually said it's an abuse of power, of political power. Now, I want Dominic Fede to explain. Let's have a mature debate, Dominic Fede. Can you come and explain to St. Lucians whether or not your government actually try to compulsorily acquire private lands to give another private interest? Because when you're acquiring lands, it's for a public purpose, huh? I need that clarified, because I'm hearing that, you know, from lawyers all over the place and people in the industry. And I need, come and explain to St. Lucians, is that true? Because if you have a government now that will want to acquire the private lands of another interest to give a particular interest, that is frightening. That's a real abuse of political power. And the court stop it. Is that true, Dominic Fede? Let's have a mature debate. Answer those questions. But I also want Dominic Fede, I'm not going to sue him, and I don't want him to call me a liar, so I'm going to ask him the questions. I want Dominic Fede to tell us, is it true that, you know where the Landings is? Mm-hmm. Between the Landings and Grosile, there is this expanse of land. I go to that beach regularly. From the time my daughters were very small, we go on that beach regularly. We have barbecues. People will tell you that's where I go and I have my barbecues. I'm hearing that this is going to be blocked off. So St. Lucians will no longer be able to go through the Pigeon Point entrance, past Landings, to go and access the beach there. Now, we need to know if that's true. I think the lands may be owned by Sandals. And I stand to be corrected. If that piece of land, where hundreds of St. Lucians go to every Sunday, is going to be blocked off, can Dominic Fede come and explain that to St. Lucians? He's the Minister of Tourism, Andre. Just think about it. I don't know if you know that area of land.
Yes, I do.
You go there on a Sunday, and you see, let me tell you, when I have to go there on a Sunday for our barbecue, I go there from about 10 o'clock. I park under a tree. I occupy my spot because I know so many St. Lucians come out there on a Sunday. And, you know, when you're there, you can move from one tree to the next, take a drink there, take a piece of chicken there, because it's a nice St. Lucian gathering. And I'm hearing, and people have called me to tell me, that that road is going to be blocked off and there'll be no access today anymore. Or I assume if there's going to be any access, we'll have to go through Grosile and try and come onto the beach.
But you admit that these are rumors.
Well, I think they're a little more than rumors. The people who call me certainly have certain access to information. I mean, I'm not one who go on television shows and show off documents, that easily. But from what I mean, but he can come and say if it's not true. Certainly, because that's a matter of grave public interest. But let's move on.
And you also mentioned another situation where you said the government allegedly tried to acquire private...
Yes, so I need Dominic Fede to come and answer that. The next thing I want the Minister of Tourism to explain to me, how much money did we pay CPL this year? And I'll tell you why I'm asking him that, because he's Ministry of Tourism and they're spending money for CPL to bring in tourists to St. Lucia, whatnot. In the budget this year, the estimates this year, there was a line included in the Ministry of Youth and Sports that said contribution to Caribbean Premier League, $950,000. $950,000 was given to CPL last year to host 5 games in St. Lucia. $950,000. This year, they did not put in any allocation. But under advertising, they put $1.7 million. The $1.7 million, according to the narrative, says for CPL, ICC Women's Cricket T20, and Winod Island Games. I would like to know, did we give CPL another $950,000 this year? As Minister of Tourism, the sponsor on the back of the T-shirt said St. Lucia, like Tourist Board, logo. Because I cannot imagine we're giving CPL $950,000, which is $1 million, to play 5 games in St. Lucia, and we cannot cut the Sosura playing field. And we cannot cut the Bexa playing field. And all over St. Lucia playing fields cannot be cut. But we're giving CPL $950,000. He's Minister of Tourism. Then, another one. How much money did we give Mercury Fest? And I'm sure sometime in the House, and I don't have time now to go into a full discussion, but can the minister, before he calls me a liar, just tell us how much money did they give Mercury Fest? How much did they give the Martinicans when they were doing it? And how much did they give this year? Put that on the side. Importantly, and I did my research, Andre, I've noticed that the tourism arrival figures for July declined over last year. With all the talk about Carnival and how much I think one minister said $12 million was put into Carnival this year. And all the big boost about Carnival. Why did tourist arrival decline in July this year? Now, I saw the figures. The minister, the junior minister, can come and clarify and explain to St. Lucians why did during the month of Carnival our tourism arrival figures dipped. After so much more money has been spent on Carnival, according to him and other government ministers. Now, I'm not happy that tourism numbers are dropping. They've been increasing for the last 8 years or so, and they should continue to increase because the more tourist arrivals, the better it is for our country. So, but the minister has been out there boasting. So rather than come and call me a liar, can the minister just come and clarify that? Now, I have some more questions to ask, but they're not really tourism related. Because I was driving up the road, Andre, and I'm listening to your news, and you carried something about the Rwanda International Airport. Now, I'm referring to what your news carried. And bear with me, and correct me if I'm wrong. According to the newscast, the airport will cost 150 million US dollars, for which a loan has been secured from the Taiwanese.
Correct.
Yeah? Let's go over it again. According to the newscast, the airport cost is $150 million, for which a loan has been sourced from the Taiwanese. And I need the minister to come and stop calling me a liar and tell us whether it's not true that the government of St. Lucia is also trying to get a loan of 75 million US dollars from local banks. And let me go over it again. Huh? According to the newscast, the airport is going to cost 150 million, for which the Taiwanese have agreed to provide the money. Why do we need an extra $75 million? And I think it's US, I was told. Is it that the cost of the airport is now 225 million US dollars? Or is it part of the Taiwanese 150 million will go to other things? I don't know, whatever other things, you know, the government wants to do. And the 75 million that they're going to get from local banks will be replace that? I don't know. But I am told there are discussions taking place with banks to create a consortium to provide a loan of 75 million US dollars to the government of St. Lucia.
I say that's in addition to the 150 million.
But that's what I'm asking you. I want the minister, because I'm just driving up the hill, because I'm told that government is trying to get a loan of 75 million for the airport. And I'm hearing your story and I'm saying, but wait, come on, think about it. If it's 150 million, they say is the cost, and they're getting a loan from the Taiwanese, why are they trying to get another loan from the local banks of $75 million?
Yeah, but by your own admission, you want to know. I gather that you're saying you're not quite sure whether that's
but
a
he's
fact.
Minister of Tourism, and he was talking about the Urandora International Airport, so maybe he can stop calling me a liar and come and provide the information to the people of St. Lucia. I need him as Minister of Tourism to come clean on that. What exactly is the cost of the airport? Why are they seeking an additional loan from local banks? And explain to us the details, because we know the history of that airport. Remember all the Ascenza papers and all the documents released in the US about ministers and who was making calls or who tried to do whatever? There's a very solid history behind this. And when a government decides to give up a World Bank initiative where we will not take a cent loan to refurbish and renovate the airport, and is willing to spend almost $500 million in loan, and you're hearing about all those developments, you have to ask the question. And the last one I'm going to ask.
Just go back to the Hilaire redevelopment issue. Your party or your government, what were the plans as far as that was concerned? Because I think the plan was to have a private developer.
Yeah.
Right. So the government is saying, well, listen, it remains with this new arrangement. We're taking a loan and we have a revenue stream, which is the airport tax. This the Hilaire International Airport, whatever funds that are derived over the next 30 years or so would belong to St. Lucia. But under your previous administration, this would be going to a private developer.
Well, three things. First of all, the PPP arrangement that was arranged through the World Bank, the IFC, the revenue stream would have gone to them, and whatever profits they made, we were guaranteed a share of it. So we would still be getting money every year. But we did not have the responsibility of maintaining the airport and dealing with ensuring that it's kept up to a certain standard. So you virtually give up the revenue stream. You know, every year you get a certain amount in profit, and you have no expenses every year. But also more importantly, you do not have a loan on your books. You do not have a loan on your books. This government has said they were not doing that. We rather put a loan of $500 million, based on all the new figures going around, on the books. So you have a loan on your books. You have a revenue stream that is supposed to be paid over to pay the loan, but that has its own fragility, because it depends on tourism arrivals. So if tourism arrival drops for any reason, you have less money to service the loan. Yeah? But you also have to maintain the airport. All risk is yours. Any hurricane that come and damage the airport, any risk, any wear and tear is yours. So yes, you keep the profit, but you also accept all the risk. Under the World Bank arrangement, you had no loan, you had no risk, and you had guaranteed profit. And interestingly, Andre, all airports are moving in that direction. We just made an announcement in Jamaica. Sangster International Airport has been managing that way. Norman Manley is going that way. The government has insisted that it's going to take a loan. The last point I want to make, because time is running out, I was reading only last week that the World Bank has approved a loan of $20 million for St. Lucia in healthcare. Now, maybe I missed it. I did not hear the Minister of Health announce that. I did not hear the Minister of Economic Development announce that. I did not hear the Prime Minister announce that. So I'm reading a press release from the World Bank saying that they have approved a loan of $20 million US for St. Lucia for healthcare improvement, and there is in there the implicit suggestion that some of it is for health insurance, to start off the health insurance. And I'm wondering, can somebody in St. Lucia please explain to us what's this about? Because this is another 50-odd million EC dollar loan we're taking. That's another loan we're taking. Mm-hmm. Granted, it's from the World Bank, so the terms are very generous, whatnot, but it's another loan. And exactly how it's going to be used and what it's going to be used for. So why can't the government of St. Lucia issue a statement on that? Somebody provide an explanation. Why do we have to read it from the World Bank announcing that they've approved a loan for St. Lucia? So don't call me liar, Honorable Fede. You want a mature debate? Do research. I've done my research on about 5 points. I'm putting it to him to come out and provide explanation. Read the transcript of this engagement today and come and provide answers to the people of St. Lucia, because we surely want to know about the lands at Pigeon Point Causeway. Are we going to lose it and St. Lucians, and that road will be closed off? We need to know whether your government compulsory try to acquire lands, you know, for one developer over another developer. The court had to stop you all. We need to know about the airport, the true cost of it, and why are we taking another loan of 75 million from local banks. We need to know about the World Bank loans. We need to know about how much money was given to Mercury Fest. We need to know how much money was given to CPL. We need to know, despite millions of dollars said to be spent on Carnival, why did tourism arrival figures drop?
In July.
In July. Mm. So, no theatrics. Let's start the mature debate.
Now, Dr. Hilaire, as you said, time is quickly moving on, and I wish we'd be able to take some calls, but we can't do that. But just a very, very quick question before, 2 questions before you leave. The follow-up on the march, the march and rally that you had. Are you satisfied, or you feel that maybe it didn't achieve its goals and aims and so on?
I'll tell you something. I was overwhelmed at the march. I mean, in all seriousness. I mean, I expected us to have a good turnout, but when I arrived, you know, by the market, I saw so many people just sitting by the market waiting for the march to reach there, because they were generally of a certain age. They didn't feel they had to walk. It's just a short walk, so they could as well wait. And as I walked to this VG playing field, I saw people I never expected to be at the match, and that was very consoling to me. Consoling from the point of view that we have this notion that St. Lucians are cowards, St. Lucians this, St. Lucians docile. But yet people were coming out to show their dissatisfaction with what's happening in the country, and to show that, look, they really wish the government would take a different look at how they approach development in this country. And I thought that the march was a phenomenal success from that point of view. There were people from environmentalists that have issues with DSH and the Dolphin Park, and, you know, the treatment of the National Trust, to persons involved, you know, in healthcare, who were really concerned about what's happening and the crisis in healthcare that exists in this country. And you had a range of people, you know, who came out and said, look, we're just not happy with what's going on in this country. And I think it was a huge success. In terms of moving forward, I think we need to continue to sensitize St. Lucians, mobilize St. Lucians. We must continue to put political pressure on the government to address the concerns of St. Lucians. There are a lot of issues out there that other organizations need to take on, the state of workers, salary negotiations. Oh, another question for Honorable Fede. The New Sandals Hotel, can he tell us how many Chinese workers will be working there and how many local workers? We need that. We need to know how many Chinese, because a Chinese company, I'm told, that will be constructing the hotel, and they are bringing their workers. We need to know how many Chinese workers will be on that site and how many St. Lucian workers. Because we may very well have to have a demonstration outside that work site if enough St. Lucians are not working there.
What about well, I don't know, should I call it a threat from, well, more so Dr. Kenny Anthony, about blocking the demolition of the Parliament building?
Well, I think Dr. Anthony was very clear. And I think most St. Lucians will tell you they're not in accordance with breaking down the buildings to put a park there. And I heard and I read what Dominic Fede said to you, where he virtually said the buildings are an eyesore. He said that the buildings, or the Printry buildings, are an eyesore, that the buildings don't serve any purpose for St. Lucia. I can't understand how a St. Lucian parliamentarian has no sense of history. Let me tell you something, Andre. I'm so proud of my country and the manifestations of our long history, both political, social, and economic. And you have to be mindful of those things. It's why I supported stopping the demolition of the old jail, the goal, which initially was a leper hospital many, years ago. Not that the police should not get a headquarters, they should get a headquarters, but can we find ways to incorporate a historical building? You know, when I serve as High Commissioner in London, the building we own, Andre, you cannot even cut the trees that over the building without going and get permission, because they will have to come and inspect how you cut in the tree. Our building that we own, we cannot even change the window panes without they getting given a special approval, because it is a heritage building. It is listed as a historical building. And how you use it and what you do, you need to get special permission from a government department to do that first. In St. Lucia, we have no regard for our patrimony. Well, I guess we were told our patrimony is measured by our credit ratings. So those things have no value, but they do have value. So Dr. Anthony made it very clear that if that's going to happen, St. Lucians must come and block it and make sure it doesn't happen. But we were very pleased with the match, and we really believe it was successful, and now it's for us to take it to another stage, and you will see increased action over the next few weeks if the government does not address some of the concerns.
And talking about increased action, the issue of the vote of no confidence?
Right, and I guess that's going through the process now, so we're going to await when is the next sitting of Parliament, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting.
And I was just curious, why 60 days?
Why is what 60 days, sorry?
The government, well, your party gave the government 60 days, otherwise you will be taking action in the courts and so on.
Well, I think it's a question of making sure that the government does not indefinitely postpone a debate on it. No, well, not indefinitely, but postpone a debate on it unreasonably. So, in other words, the government, when somebody has filed a motion of no confidence in the Prime Minister or the Minister of Finance or the government, it should be heard with some haste. And if it is not done, it is seen as deliberately, postponing the debate. And we should, in the interest of the public, have the debate as soon as possible.
And why that vote of no confidence? What is your party's issue with the administration that you feel that you need to go to these lengths?
Well, I think the match said it all. It's not just our party. The public there are so many instances of discontent in this country. The health crisis. And I'm not going to pretend that all was well when Labour Party was there. I mean, there were challenges. The opposition campaigned and said, we will fix it. As soon as we come in, we're going to fix it. It's 2.5 years, it's worse, a lot worse. And you're hearing plans today, and it's changed next week, and there's a crisis in the health sector right now. You have issues with debt in this country, and all of a sudden, some people are not concerned about debt anymore. All of a sudden. In the last 2.5 years, and certainly with this latest airport development loan, almost $1 billion would have been borrowed, or close to it, when you add all those figures. All of a sudden, some people are not concerned about debt anymore, but we are creating a serious problem in this country with debt. We were told that unemployment would have been addressed. It's 2.5 years. I remember, Andre, and maybe your newsroom can find it. I'm sure I heard a government minister, maybe the Prime Minister, maybe Dominic Fede, I'm not sure, say, as soon as he came into power, every year for the next 5 years, 1,000 St. Lucians will be joining cruise ships. It's more than 2 years. We were told bananas will be exported to France within 3 months. It's not happened. So we have a failing economy. We have crisis in healthcare. We have serious issues with unemployment. We have serious issues with our CIP. We have serious issues with governance. We have contracts being given with no tendering. And that takes me, Andre. I mean, I'm the rep for Castries South. First of all, the entire Banan area was cleared. Lands, I believe, that owned by Slasper. But I'm told that CCC gave the contract. And you're asking, well, did they put out a tender for that? Who did they try to get that? Because nobody from, you know, the Banan or the Fuashu or Hospital Road area got any employment in that. Now I think they put in railings or something. Again, you want to ask the question, who is paying for that? Is this CCC project or is this Slasper projects? And I've tried to get information. The last time I tried, a certain government party official virtually told me it's not my business to ask those questions. But, you know, you have to ask those fundamental questions, and people are dissatisfied with the governance of this country, the way in which things are done, the way in which the country has been managed, the way that people are treated, the jackasses and backing dogs. There is a tremendous sense of dissatisfaction and loss of faith in the government. And it's a good time for us to table a motion and debate it in the House. Debate it, and that's the whole purpose, is for us to go out and debate it, and for let the ministers and them say, well, look, this is the greatest prime minister we've ever had. You know, like one said, he's even better than John Compton. And for us to point out to the nation systematically all the faults and deficiencies. I mean, I quickly went through them, but certainly in that debate, we would be a lot more detailed and exhaustive.
Finally, well, again, as you were saying earlier, rumor has it that you're going to be challenged. You have a new challenger for your constituency. So anything, is it true? Have you heard the rumors yourself?
Well, I've not only just heard the rumors, I've seen the gentleman all over the constituency. I mean, the mayor has been going around meet the mayor. So basically, it's not meet the next candidate, but meet the mayor. And I think he had a meeting in Basse Joseph 2 Sundays ago, meet the mayor in Basse Joseph.
So you can confirm that Peterson Francis will be the one?
What I can confirm is he's out there introducing himself and asking for support. I know that for a fact. But it's quite interesting because when I was chairman of the CIP, the present prime minister was then leader of the UWP, was arguing that no party hack should chair any board, and that, you know, we should not politicize boards, and therefore I should not be chairman. The chairman of the Housing Corporation, I think, is a senator, and now the chairman of the CCC, who is the mayor, is out there campaigning to be a candidate in the next election, and you wonder if the same standards would be held. But what's interesting is that I've been lobbying for a lot to happen in Castries South, to finish the Basse Joseph Multipurpose Center, to establish a court for the young people, the Banan waterfront. We need to do something about it. In my small, short manifesto for the constituency, I had outlined that as a plan. The situation of drainage in Fuashu, a court for the young people in Fuashu. There are a lot of deficiencies in Castries South. A lot has been done over the years, but a lot more has to be done. And nobody has been taking note of me. But I suspect in the next few months, there'll be a lot of activity in Castries South. And you know what? I welcome it, because we need the development for the people of Castries South. And I suspect it'll be the mayor doing all of it, because, of course, you know, but what also interesting is that before the last election, the mayor, who is from Castries Central, born in the CDC, lives in Antrepo. He was removed as a candidate for Castries Central, removed about 2 weeks before the election. They thought he was not good enough to be elected to be representative for Castries Central. So he is from Castries Central. He lived all his life in Castries East, but he now is good enough to come to Castries South to be a representative. Somebody who have no connections, no involvement in Castries South. And the same people who took around Mary Isaac, introducing her and lobbying people to vote for her, and when they lost, disappeared, are the same people now who's coming to introduce him. And that'll be interesting over the next few weeks for them to explain how they had brought Mary Isaac, who lost, disappeared, and now they bring in another person who have no connection in the constituency, who was not good enough to be elected in Castries Central, but is now going to start doing all kinds of projects. In fact, I even got a letter from the mayor saying he's going to start an after-school program for young people. And I'm asking, there's SSDF, there's Ministry of Social Transformation, but why is CCC going to start social programs in the constituency now? I mean, seriously, why is CCC? Is that the core operations? Is that the mandate of CCC to start organizing social programs? And there's tent politics now. Anybody that wants to have a little activity, give them the CCC tent. So anywhere you're going to see white tents with a little flag at the top, there are tent politics taking place now. So if you're having a little barbecue by your home, you get a tent, you know. So well, let's see how it plays out, but it will be quite interesting.
Definitely. So, Dr. Hilaire, I want to thank you very much for being here today. Let's hope that the Minister for Tourism, as I'm sure he will hear all your questions, and he will respond sometime soon. Okay, Dr. Hilaire?
Thank you
Dr.
very
Ernest
much.
Hilaire, MP for Castries South, thank you very much for being my special guest today.